Hi guys, welcome back to Sugar Spice and Rosé. Erica here. Today we will be making a chocolate layer cake, and you're going to have 5 layers of chocolate cake, and it's going to be filled with the dreamiest American buttercream. I'm going to be showing you how to make the cake, level the cake, fill it, and how to make that vanilla American buttercream. So if you're interested, please keep on watching. The first step is to combine your dry ingredients, which is your flour, your raisin agents, your salt, and your cocoa powder, and mix that together. Then you're going to steep your coffee. I'm using coffee grounds in some hot water. You're going to allow that to steep until it's become almost room temperature, and then you're just going to obviously strain off those coffee grounds. Next, you're going to take your butter and sugar, combine that with your vanilla essence, and then whip that for approximately 5 minutes until it's nice and pale and fluffy. You want to make sure that your butter and your sugar are creaming together properly, because that allows for air to be incorporated into the batter. And if you look at that, look at how pale and fluffy that sugar and butter have gotten. That is exactly where you want your butter and sugar to get to. Next, you're going to add your eggs, 1 to 2 at a time, but make sure after each addition you allow those eggs to mix into the batter. And the thing is with this recipe, the truth is it really did not turn out that great in my opinion, so I won't be sharing this recipe, but I just wanted to show you the method that I would have used and just be transparent with basically my feelings where it comes to recipe testing. So I will be testing more chocolate cake recipes to make sure that everything is perfect for you. After you've added all of your eggs, you're going to scrape down that bowl one more time to once again, yes, make sure everything is mixing properly and there are no unmixed parts of your batter in the bowl. The next step is to add your dry ingredients. You're going to start with some of your flour, and you're going to add your flour in 2 additions, alternating between the flour and the coffee. Then you're going to pour in your coffee in 2 additions. So that was just one part of your coffee. Allow that to mix on a low speed. Then you're going to add in some more of your dry ingredients. Allow that to mix as well on low speed again. You don't want all that flour going everywhere. And when that second batch of flour has been mixed in, you're going to pour in the remainder of your coffee. And when all of your ingredients are incorporated, you're going to stop the mixer and scrape the bowl down again and allow that to mix for another minute or so. I actually undermix this batter because I used the creamy method and I did not want to over mix it. So you would see me mixing with my hand, but eventually I would regret that. I would have really liked to let this mixture go for about another 30 seconds to a full minute to properly incorporate everything and to, in a sense, still activate some of that gluten. Not a whole lot of gluten, but enough to create a proper structure in cake, which I did not have. So in the future I will be coming up with some more tips for you guys where it comes to cakes, but this is just one of the ways I believe this cake failed, because I undermixed the batter. Moving on to our buttercream, you're going to take some cold cubed butter. I like to use cold butter because I live in a very warm country, so using room temperature butter for my buttercream never works for me. So I'm using cold butter, and as you can see, the butter is getting stuck onto the beaters, and that will happen because again the butter is cold. So I'm going to stop the mixer and scrape down those beaters, and then allow that butter to whip for approximately 5 minutes until it is nice and pale and fluffy, just like our butter and sugar previously in this video. The reason I use cold butter as well is because again I live in a warm country, so when I actually beat the butter like this, you can obviously see it softens. So imagine if I took softened butter, whipped it, and whilst it's whipping, it's becoming even more soft. When I go to add my icing sugar, it's going to just be a soupy and greasy mess. So at this point, even though the butter is soft, it still has that chill in the butter, so that when I'm whipping it right now, it's still, you know, cold enough to not melt, and I can add in my icing sugar. Our next step is to add half of our icing sugar, and then we're going to start the mixer, being very careful to not, you know, start it too high, that all the icing sugar will just go all over the place. So when you've added the icing sugar and it's all incorporated, you're going to then whip that on high for another 3 to 5 minutes. I will go for the 5-minute mark just to be safe, to make sure you're allowing some of that icing sugar to dissolve and to incorporate a nice measure of air. You can also add your vanilla extract as well. And after it's whipped for those 5 minutes, you're going to add in the remainder of your icing sugar. Allow that to incorporate to make sure you have no loose icing sugar anymore. And then once again, you're going to allow that to whip on high for approximately 5 to 7 minutes. And this is going to allow your buttercream to get a ton of air, to get so light and fluffy, and then just creamy. It's going to have an amazing mouthfeel. And add a tablespoon of heavy cream as you see fit. If it's a bit too stiff, you can add that tablespoon of heavy cream. When you're done whipping your butter for those 5 minutes, you're then going to cover it in plastic wrap and place it in the fridge for approximately 30 minutes so it can firm up. Then you're going to remove it and then whip it on high once again for another 5 to 7 minutes. That is the trick and the key to making sure your buttercream is not greasy, but it's still stable whilst being light and fluffy. That's exactly what you want to do. This is the best icing sugar, best buttercream recipe that I use all the time for all of my cakes, and majority of my cakes, I should say, and cupcakes in my home bakery. When those 5 minutes are up, you're going to want to remove those air bubbles now. These air bubbles are not going to allow your cakes to be smooth if you're icing them, or it's not going to pipe smooth either. So what you're going to do to get rid of those air bubbles, you're going to allow that mixture to go to low and mix for another 1 to 2 minutes. Next, you're going to level your cakes. I eventually baked 3 6-inch pans of cake, and I divided each of those pans of cake into 2 layers, so a total of 6 layers. But then one night I got hungry, so I decided to eat one of the layers, so I ended up with 5 layers of cake. And as you can see how the cake is crumbling, because these cake layers are actually frozen, so they should not be crumbling. So that just goes to show that there's something wrong with this batter. And even though I'm using a chef knife, because at this point I didn't have a serrated knife, it really shouldn't be crumbling like this. So then I took my turntable with a non-slip mat and my cake board, and I placed a dab of buttercream on that cake board and placed my cake into the center of that board. Then I used approximately a 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of buttercream between each layer and spread it as evenly as I possibly could spread it. And what I will say, something that I always tell any new bakers that I have around me, is to just take your time with this, because sometimes you really gotta just take your time to make sure you have nice even layers, and you don't need to rush, especially if it's your first cake. Just take your time and have fun. Then just repeat that step for all of your layers until everything is fully stacked. Then you're going to just go around your whole cake to make sure that everything is lined up and everything is even. and then you're going to crumb coat. And a crumb coat is where you take some of your buttercream and you place a thin layer of that buttercream around the cake to trap in any crumbs, to fill in any gaps, and then you allow that to chill, and that just stops from any of those crumbs showing up in your final layer of buttercream, or any of, again, those gaps between layers showing up between the buttercream. When your crumb coat is finished chilling, you're going to take some more of your buttercream and you're going to start from the bottom of the cake and build your way up with the buttercream. Take your time and go around slowly, and you're going to want to have a fairly thick layer of buttercream because you will be scraping away a lot of that buttercream whilst you're smoothing it out. So just go layer by layer and add on a thick layer of your buttercream. Go right up to the top, and you're going to put some buttercream on the top of the cake and smooth that out as well using your offset spatula. Then you're going to take your cake scraper and slowly go around the cake, smoothing it out. As you can see, I put my hand right at the top of the turntable and slowly bring it around so that I get one smooth motion. When I try to spin my turntable too quickly, it just gets really shaky and stuff, so I like to do it like this, and just filling any gaps that you may have when you're smoothing it out. That's why I talk about, you know, getting rid of those air bubbles in your buttercream. So when you're smoothing it out, just make sure you keep one smooth motion and don't lift or press the cake scraper into the buttercream as you would have seen me done before. That was a mistake. But as you see me doing again, take your hand at the top of your cake turntable and just one smooth pull just like that, and go around until you get it as smooth as you want it to be. Now when you get to the top of the cake, this is what I consider to be one of the trickier parts of decorating a cake. So what I do is I just pile on some more buttercream and hold my offset spatula very steady on the cake and try my best to smooth it out. As you can see, there's some overflow of buttercream on the side, so you're going to try to scrape that off and then do smooth swipes at the top of the cake for any of that excess buttercream to pull it into the center. Again, this is still one area that gives me some trouble, so I am still practicing where it comes to doing this. But yeah, just get it as smooth as possible. So take your time and swipe inwards. You see me switch back to my offset spatula because it was more comfortable on my hands, and just swipe inwards. I will figure out a way to get this, you know, smooth without, you know, messing it up or anything like that. I'll figure it out. But just make sure you're going right around and then chill your cake. Where your cake is finished chilling, I took some more of that buttercream and mixed it with some espresso buttercream that I had on hand and placed it in a piping bag with a 1M tip. And forgive the lighting, I actually recorded this at night time. I was originally going to do a chocolate drip, but that did not work out. Somehow, I don't know, the temperature, the chocolate drip was not chocolate dripping in a sense, so you will see some like chocolate stains. It just went kind of horrible, but basically that's what I did. And I used that 1M tip and I just created like a nice border at the bottom of the cake and some swirls at the top of the cake. And after you've decorated it in any way that you choose, your cake is finished. So I hope you enjoyed this week's video. As I said before, I won't be sharing the recipe to this cake because it did not come out the way that I wanted it to. It didn't really taste that good either, so I will still be testing the recipe for you. So just stay tuned for our upcoming videos where I show you some more behind the scenes on my TikTok or Instagram of me testing the recipes. And I will be sharing that process with you as well because I want to be as transparent so that you can see, what it's like on this journey called baking. Because it's not very easy, but it's a lot of fun, and that's one thing I love about it. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you really soon. Bye.